This week, we are exploring what it really means to be a city manager, how Calimesa compares with other California cities, and take a deep dive into our fiscal year 2025-2026 budget, what we're spending, saving, and planning for the future. Stay tuned.
This is the Calimesa Insider Podcast, the original Pass Area City podcast, focusing on the ins and outs of your city government at work. And now, here's the host of Calimesa Insider, City Manager Will Kolbow.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the program. And yes, I am the real Will Kolbow. I thought about doing my Slim Shady impersonation, but let's face it, I'm no Marshall Mathers. If you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, then you clearly aren't either following the city's Instagram account nor mine. And you really should, because staff outdid themselves this week. Check out the city's Instagram page at City of Calimesa and the podcast Instagram at Calimesa Insider. Now, speaking of this week, it has been a busy week, which is why I'm a day late in recording this episode. Mayor Linda Molina, City Engineer Mike Thornton, and I were in Washington, D.C. advocating for funding of the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange. We met with staff from Senators Padilla and Schiff's offices, as well as the Department of Transportation. We also met with Congressman Ken Calvert, who will be instrumental in assisting us in obtaining the funding we need for the interchange. I will go further into detail on our trip in the next episode. Now, in addition, my wife and my daughter traveled to Boston this week to move my daughter in for her ballet summer intensive. My daughter will be there for 5 weeks, and I already miss her. She's always fun to be around. She did this last year, and she fell in love with Boston, so she's really excited to be in what she considers her second home. Ironically, they had a layover in Baltimore, which is about 30 miles from D.C., so it was interesting that we were traveling for two different reasons, yet ended up in the same place. Now, tonight, I get to go pick my wife up from LAX, so I'm really looking forward to that. I do not have a city council meeting preview this time around, since we do not have another city council meeting until July 21st. Typically, we do not have meetings on the first Monday in July and the first Monday in September, so this is nothing out of the ordinary. So last thing before we get to the meat of the matter, with 4th of July coming up, I would like to remind the public that fireworks are illegal in all of Riverside County. If you're caught with any fireworks, the fine is $1,000 per infraction. And if you go visit friends in Yucaipa, be advised the fines there have been increased to $5,000. With the Palisades and Altadena fires happening not too long ago, it should be a stark reminder that we are in a high fire danger area. We know there are people that want to report illegal fireworks in their area, and the Sheriff's Department has a place to do that. You can report online at riversidesheriff.org, and there's a big banner on the homepage that you can click to report, or you can call 800-950-2444. The lines can get jammed as it serves the entire county, not just us, so please be patient and keep trying, but your best bet is to report online. So if you want to see fireworks, there are plenty of shows to see in Southern California. Leave it to the pros. Okay, without further ado, let's get into our main topics for this podcast. The title city manager might not convey the full weight of the job, but in cities like Calimesa, the city manager is essentially the CEO of the city. Now, while the council sets policy, it's my job to turn those decisions into daily reality, overseeing all departments, balancing the budget, negotiating development agreements, and coordinating emergency responses. Across California, in most cities, about 97% of them use this council manager form of government. That means the mayor presides as the ceremonial and legislative leader, while the city manager handles the executive functions. City managers typically bring 26 years of public service experience, often rising through the ranks in the fields like public works, planning, or finances. In small cities like ours, we're often generalists who must understand a bit of everything, from roads and parks to public safety and development. Now, I will say, as someone that came up through finance, it made the city manager jump a bit difficult at first, but I think I've adjusted to the role and obtained the knowledge needed in all various areas, thanks in large part to our wonderful city staff here. I have worked with enough professionals to know that we have a very talented and dedicated staff in Calimesa. So California has 483 cities, of which more than 260 are small, meaning under 35,000 residents, just like Calimesa. And the California City Management Foundation, in conjunction with the Rose Institute of State and Local Government at Claremont McKenna College, conducted a survey of California's city managers. I was one of the participants in the survey. And according to the survey, the biggest concerns among city managers in the state are familiar to all of us. First, fiscal health, keeping budgets balanced amid rising costs. Secondly, infrastructure, maintaining roads, storm drains, parks, and public buildings. Third, economic development, attracting businesses to boost our tax base. And fourth, housing and homelessness, affecting both large and small cities. Now, fiscal health is the number one concern for city managers. I found some examples of cities that are facing deficits just perusing articles. Now, this is a small sample size, as many cities are feeling the pinch of rising costs that are not matched up with similar increases in revenue. In Antioch, the city council planned to cut $11.5 million and tap $5 million in reserves to offset a $7.7 million deficit after starting with a more than $24 million gap. East Palo Alto adopted a $62.9 million budget that includes spending on a new civic building and parking program, despite running a projected general fund deficit of $3 to $4 million. Now, even smaller cities like Campbell in Northern California and National City down by San Diego have weighed using reserves to fund to stabilize budgets or fund critical facility upgrades, like Campbell considering pool upgrades despite a gap, and National City activating reserves to offset shortfalls. What this shows is that Calimesa's situation isn't unique. In fact, we are in a fortunate position to adopt a structurally balanced budget, as I will discuss later. Now, cities across California are walking the tightrope between essential investments and prudent fiscal management. So most cities in California, or more small cities in California, including Calimesa, use at-large elections and designate their mayor through the council each year. This structure fosters broad representation and rotation, but also requires strong city leadership led by the city manager to see long-term plans through. Okay, so let's dive into Calimesa's recently adopted fiscal year 2025-26 budget. But before we get to the numbers, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work of our city staff on this budget, starting with our finance director, Celeste Reed. She really does the bulk of the work on the budget and making it all come together. So I want to thank her and congratulate her on a job well done. So we're entering this year with an estimated $6.9 million in reserves, about 70% of our annual budget, well above the typical 20 to 30% target. These reserves act like a financial cushion during emergencies or unexpected expenses. Our budget projects $10.9 million in revenues versus $10.7 million in expenses, giving us a structural surplus of about $146,000. However, there are some recurring expenditures that we are funding from special revenue funds that have some built-up fund balances. So if you deduct those out, our structural surplus is about $87,000. That surplus indicates our recurring revenues exceed our recurring expenses, a fiscal position many other small cities are struggling to maintain. So the top revenue sources for us, property tax at about $6.5 million and sales tax at about $1.7 million. Now, that is combined, that is over 75% of our budget, but property tax growth is capped by Prop 13, slowing the growth of revenue even in a rising real estate market, another challenge shared by cities statewide, and one that I've talked about on the podcast previously. This makes economic development essential, and that's why the budget includes $50,000 allocated specifically for attracting new businesses, particularly retail and commercial tenants, because they can drive growth in sales tax. Now, 62% of our budget is dedicated to public safety, the sheriff's contract, our fire department, and animal control, critical but costly. This year, we're facing budget pressures from the following things: a 9.5% increase in the sheriff's contract, which translates to almost $250,000, insurance up by almost $40,000, and in technology costs up by $40,000. While we've mitigated some increases through internal savings, we're already projecting $450,000 in new costs in next fiscal year. This mirrors what we're seeing in Antioch, East Palo Alto, and others. Rising personnel and service costs are squeezing local budgets. Unlike many other cities, we run very lean, so cutting staff would mean significant service cuts. One thing we hear loud and clear from our residents is the need for a well-maintained city. And that's why this year's $4 million capital improvement program includes the completion of Phase 2 of Mountain View Park, roadway improvements at County Line Road and Calimesa Boulevard, continued work on the Cherry Valley Boulevard interchange, storm drain upgrades on California Street, ADA accessibility ramps at the new library, senior center facility updates, and more. Looking ahead, we've planned a massive $80 million in infrastructure over 5 years. Other cities are doing the same. Even when balancing budgets, they're prioritizing public investments. It's a tightrope, but it's a choice to protect the quality of life of residents. Now, as we've talked about in past episodes, Calimesa has over 7,000 approved housing units waiting in the pipeline. That means more homes, more families, more demand on roads, on services, and on parks, among other things. Challenges, the growth presents both challenges and opportunities. The key will be ensuring new development contributes to our tax base and supports the infrastructure it relies on. As we grow, we benefit from economies of scale, making our services more cost-effective in the long run. So what are we seeing? Calimesa is in a strong fiscal position, but we're not immune to rising costs. And fiscal year 2026-27 will be a challenge for us. We're making infrastructure investments and growing smartly. We know that balanced budgets and future resilience require economic growth. And we're not alone in this. Other cities are making tough decisions too. Our strategy is simple: remain fiscally prudent, maintain public safety and quality infrastructure, and continue to grow thoughtfully. I want to end with this final thought. The job of a city manager is very unique and challenging. I follow many city managers on LinkedIn, and there's one particular person that is very outspoken in defense of the profession and the challenges it faces. Now, I'm going to just read the first line of a post that he made recently, okay? Today, I sat across from a man who said, you work for me. I'll talk to you however I want. The classic version of this line is, I pay your salary. Couple of things. First, I hope this man does not manage anyone with that attitude. Can you imagine a boss that told you that? Second, if we get technical about it, it's inaccurate. The city manager works for the city council. This person does not have the direct ability to hire or fire the city manager, nor any other member of staff. But all kidding aside, the premise of the post is the question as to whether government is broken or is it the culture surrounding it. The post mentions that we see this everywhere, but not just in government, but in customer service, restaurants, all over the place. That if money is exchanged, it is thrown and gives you permission to treat people like dirt. In a world that is strife with misinformation and blurring between fact and opinion, it's more difficult than ever to navigate this job. But this is why I do the podcast. Why the city of Calimesa is investing time and energy into our social media content and strategy, because more and more, this is how people get their information. Quite frankly, it's a bit scary sometimes to put yourself out there like this, because you open yourself up to criticism, especially when talking about subjects that are controversial, like certain types of development, projects that have taken longer than expected, misunderstandings about why things take so long. There are those that we will never change the mind of, no matter how many different ways we communicate the whys, which are not excuses, by the way. We see the views, we see the numbers, and we know there are lots of you out there that get it, that are understanding, and know that we are really doing the best we can each and every day for the residents of this community. So with that, we will wrap up the show. Thanks for joining this deeper look into Calimesa's city government, statewide context, and our city budget. The full budget document will be on the city's website soon at calimesa.gov/budget. And we encourage you to attend the upcoming city council meetings or reach out with questions. Our next city council meeting will be Monday, July 21st at 6 p.m. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Calimesa Insider. Thanks for listening. I'm Will Kolbow. Have a fun and safe 4th of July. And again, leave the fireworks to the pros. I'll see you next time.